The protagonist begins by saying it was a boring life. He was born into a regular family and lived regular days. Most days were dull. He believed he would die without anything special ever happening. However, that wasn't the case. One of the protagonist's eyes glows as he says everything changed. On the screen there's a blonde character and he says he found a game called Heroes of Destiny and that's how he became the owner of the world. However, now back in his apartment he's really happy because he's finally alone. It's not that he likes or dislikes school. He turns on his PC and says it's just that when he's playing that alone is enough to make him happy. In this place, he's the protagonist. He always preferred single-player games because you can play countless routes countless times. You can even use some hacks and surpass all the system's limits. It was like the entire world there existed solely for one player. However, with a sheepish expression, he says that's what he thought, but now it's time to start over. He turns on the live stream and someone asks if he's really streaming in the middle of the week. The whole chat starts mocking the guy asking if he's some kind of bum who doesn't go to school and just stays on the PC. Until someone named AGGJ sends a domination of 10. Even though it wasn't much, he was happy since something is better than nothing. Then someone named DEA sends 1000. Now he's confused. He grabs the monitor and everyone in the chat wants to know who this crazy person is. They're saying they're sure this guy will ask for a refund. But the person just asks him to check his email. When he opens the inbox, it's a message from the game's creator. He says these are viewer who always watches the channel and is also a developer. He made a game some time ago that was so hard that nobody managed to finish it during a closed beta. And you want our guy to play this game to check its difficulty and approve whether he liked it or not. The protagonist got intrigued by this claim that no one could finish it. And what if he managed to complete it? Even a regular guy like him could become someone special. A window in the PC asks if he wants to install the game and he immediately says yes. With that, a game called Heroes of Destiny begins. The message says the kingdom of Roke was destroyed by the kingdom of Jopal in 294. He would be born as an insignificant soul in this place and become a hero to stop the resurrection of the Demon King. And when he ascended to the god's throne, he'd be granted any wish he desired. Over in Ocean, he says the graphics are much worse than he imagined. But considering it's a game developed by a single person, this is the limit of what can be done. He then writes his name, which would be master of the game. And with that, a welcome message to the continent of Ellen appears. He then finds himself lost in the middle of a forest. The game seemed pretty ordinary and weird because it didn't even have a tutorial, but he was fine with that. That's when he noticed something ahead. It was the village chief who says he's not a familiar face and asks what he wants there. However, the protagonist found it strange because there was no dialogue box. Same, there was a box to type in and he wondered if the NPC could really understand what he was saying. He then tells the old man to hand over all the money or he'll kill everyone in the village. He waits anxiously to see how the man will respond, only for the old man to whack him on the head, asking what nonsense the boy is spouting. With that, his character falls to the ground and obviously he dies. He was confused, trying to figure out if he could really talk to the characters. The game asks if he wants to try again and he says of course he won't give up like that. This time, the old man asks the same question. But now he says he's in need of food and drink and asks for help. The old man, feeling sorry for him, leads him to the village and tells him to follow. He then enters the man's house who gives him a mug telling him to drink it to calm down first. The protagonist thanks him and drinks it only to be poisoned and die in the chair. He then gets an idea and unplugs the internet cable from his PC. Without the internet, there'd be no way for the game's creator to control these NPCs. However, when he goes to talk to the old man, everything is bugged and strange. And in the next second, a message appears saying he was killed for speaking nonsense. At that moment, he realizes that disconnecting the internet isn't the secret to winning this. He then remembers that the name of the person who developed this game was DE. But he has no idea if this is really a person or the name of the team behind it. It was already 1:30 a.m. and he decided to save since that was enough for one day. However, he was impressed. there was a game where you could talk to NPCs. It was almost like this world of heroes really existed. Now it made sense why no one managed to beat it during the beta test. He opens his eyes before going to sleep thinking that he was really getting excited. From that day on, driven by the desire to be special, he was absorbed into that game. As he progressed, he lost track of time. He was completely immersed, and this continued for 10 years. While the guy is motivated and 10 years playing the same thing. In an office, someone calls for Oshiro-san. Turns out it's his coworker. She says she's already sent the files he asked for, and the guy thanks her. Some time passes and she congratulates him for finishing everything. Our boy thanks her as well and helps while she stands there, a bit embarrassed, not knowing what to say. She then asks why they don't go out for a little dinner, just the two of them, before heading home. And maybe have a second dinner after they get home. Her face clearly shows what she's hoping for. However, our Oshiro-san apologizes, saying he has to go home. The poor girl is left stunned. He says there's something much more important he has to do and waves goodbye. It seems she's disappointed again, having been rejected once more. She's been getting turned down for quite some time. I'll let it slide this time because today is the day he's finally finishing the game after 10 years, right? So, let's see. Apparently, the night turned into morning. He's congratulated for being the first human to enter the ranks of the gods. And for being registered in the Hall of Honor. Our guy is standing there all happy, and he finally managed to finish it. But his smile quickly changes expression. After so long, he managed to do what he always wanted to become, in some way special. But on the other hand, his life was more ordinary than ever. Wouldn't it have been much more extraordinary to be with his co-worker? Oh, you idiot. At least in the game, he felt like he'd lived something entirely different. He remembers the characters like the Black Prince, Gale Krakow, Cardinal Caesar Labaro, and the Witch Celestina Urin. All the characters were full of charm and unique personalities. The reactions there were so lifelike that he felt those people existed somewhere else. But now, rubbing his eyes, he knows it's all over, until he hears a sound. Looking at the screen, he sees a message asking if he wants to start a new adventure. But this is a very honest message warning him that if he presses yes, he'll be teleported to the continent of Ellen. And after selecting it, he wouldn't return until the game was completed, while Shira wonders if there's some kind of secret stage. However, with his mouse, which looks more like a brick, he says he's eager to go through it all again. And now that he's come this far, he had no choice but to move forward. Of course, he's transported to the continent of Ellen. At least unlike other protagonists, he was 100% warned. A strange voice welcomes the master of the game. Slowly, he opens his eyes, wondering why his chest hurts so much. He couldn't breathe properly and had no idea what room he was in. Until someone next to him says he's finally awake. It's an old man with a mustache who says it's thanks to the high-tier potion he had reserved. The boy starts to open his eyes, and the man calls him Kalik-sama. But our confused protagonist asks who the mustachioed man is, leaving him unsure of what to say. As far as he remembers, the healer didn't mention this potion causing amnesia. However, the protagonist has a desolate look, clearly confused. The man then says he'll introduce himself again and states his name is Russell. The protagonist quickly notices the man isn't speaking Japanese, but he can understand everything he's saying. But the worst part is that he still feels in the same chest pain since he woke up. Russell apologizes, saying it's his fault for rushing him. The chest pain was a side effect of the potion he gave him, but it would pass soon enough. He then says the boy will feel much better shortly, so he'll take his leave for now. With that, the door closes while our boy is left standing there confused. Some time passes and the candle goes out. He opens his eyes again and rises from the bed. Go into the mirror. It's just as he thought. His body feels entirely different, and it's obvious he's in a different body. A body has no idea who it belongs to. He can remember the 30 years he lived, but he can't even figure out his name in this moment. Looking at himself in the mirror, he wonders who in this world this person is. That's when the famous system window appears. Player name, Calix Shiken. A noble with no profession, completely battered and broken. Level 8 with a reputation of 3 stars and 14% approval. Additionally, he possesses the governing skills of finance, development, and military. What Calix notices is that this screen looks very similar to the game's systems interface. Now the whole being sent to the continent thing really made sense. He was in the main stage of the entire game, the famous continent of Ellen. He puts his hand on his chest and says he needs to calm down first. He then feels something strange. He beats his chest again and collapses on the floor in pain. This body of his was a wreck and he had no idea why. But at least it was clear this wasn't just a dream. First, he'd have to get used to being called Calix Shiken. He goes to the bed and keeps repeating to himself over and